Welcome everybody to the second segment, live stream today, Evidence of Giants That Roam the Earth series that I'm starting up on Visual Disturbance channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that I totally enjoy, and it's in my home, in my parts of Kentucky. So, title of today's broadcast is Giants in the Bluegrass State in Kentucky. Good old bluegrass, right? If you haven't had the opportunity, last week we did a broadcast on giants in Astelion, Wisconsin. Go check it out. The link is in the description. I would appreciate it. But yeah, we're going to be in the Bluegrass State today, folks. And here I am, Brian Reese, your host of Visual Disturbance. Thanks everybody for attending with me this afternoon on this lovely day in Kentucky. So yeah. It's going to be an interesting series. I'm going to try to do a broadcast every 6 p.m. Eastern time on Thursdays. That's what the new time's going to be. So mark it in your calendar, hit the notification bell and everything like that. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and then for future broadcasts. But for right now, I'm going to be setting it for 6 p.m. Eastern time on Thursdays. So next week, we'll still be talking about giants and anything in between that. Whatever random broadcast I pop up, decide if we want to talk about Peru or whatever's going on in the world, we might bring those up. But I'm going to keep these broadcasts strictly for giants. I enjoy the narrative and I enjoy the topic. But before we get going, give a shout out to all my sponsors. Miss Ann at Shake and Wake Radio. Bless you, Miss Ann. I hope you're doing well. Go check out Joshua Watts Leather Works. The man can make a mean wallet and holster or whatever you need for anything, that a belt or etc. So also go check out my P.O. Box at Visual Disturbance, P.O. Box 324, Waco, Kentucky 40385. Go check that out, and I really appreciate it. And then, go check out my merch too. Go check out my Milkman Nephilim Chaser mug, and then other merchandise I have, t-shirts, etc. Go check all that out. It helps support the channel. And then at the bottom of the screen somewhere, right down here, support me at coffee.com. It's my coffee webpage. If you want to support the channel, you can check that out. But yeah, anyways, folks, we're going to go to 2 locations today in Kentucky. I'm kind of gun-ho for this broadcast because there's just all kinds of evidence that I'm going to be bringing to light tonight, especially on this topic with the Nephilim, the giants, etc. So, and one would wonder how this is all covered up. And in my hometown, even in around surrounding areas in this lovely bluegrass state, it's crickets. You don't hear anybody talking about it. So anyways, let's get into it. So we're going to go to a particular place. A lot of people might not have never heard of this before. I've done broadcast on this particular location a while back, over a year ago, but I didn't have as much information on it as I do tonight, so I'm going to be bringing that to light. So here we go, folks. We're going to go to Boyd County, Kentucky. Those of you all don't know where Boyd County, Kentucky is. It's on the border of West Virginia and Kentucky, so it's literally in Kentucky. It's on the northeastern side of Kentucky. And there's a lot of significant things here that I want to document and bring to light, so here we go. We're going to do a little Google Earth imagery. So here we are. We're going to head over to Boyd County, Kentucky. Boyd County, Kentucky is a very interesting location. I've been here before, not on the Visual Disturbance channel, but other platforms. But I want to bring this to light. Anybody that's out there, anybody that's out in Kentucky in general, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, put the comment in the comment box or in the chat if you're from Kentucky or wherever you're from. If you're from another country or state, put in the comments. But if you're from Ashland, Kentucky, that's Boyd County. If you're in Ashland, Kentucky, let me know in the comments box and see if y'all have been to this actual area. I've been to Ashland, Kentucky, but I've never been to this park. So as you can see here, we're going to zoom in. There's a basketball goal. It's your traditional lovely Indian mound scenario. everything I've ever done as far as researching these things, I've always found out that it's always like, okay, hey, wait a minute. Why are you making a recreational section for, you know, kids to play on, or recess, playground, etc., whatever it is, tennis court, basketball court, whatever. But as you can see here, it says Indian Mounds marker that I have here. And it has like this fence row, right? And there's all this brush and trees that's covering it up. This is like a figure 8. There's 2 mounds here, right? And if you kind of zoom out, it's kind of interesting. If you zoom out and look, you know, I've always exposed these things. I don't know, folks. It just seems strange to me. You know, I don't know. I want to bring this up. It looks like a Wi-Fi antennas, right? But obviously, you know, this is a stadium seating where people gather, right? And I've always talked about this on some controversial topics about harmonization, frequency, etc. It's just interesting to me that there's like a stage here and it has these Wi-Fi antenna markings. And I know that's stadium seating. I'm not trying to reach down and just, you know, go into speculation mode. But it is kind of interesting that you have your tennis courts here. You got this lovely place that they gather to do whatever, you know, whatever they do there. There's probably all kinds of events going on. I'm not putting down. I'm just documenting it because we've talked about this stuff on Visual Disturbance. You got this lovely place over here. I think it's a baseball field, so to speak, and then you also have another baseball field. And right here. And we all know, excuse me, let me move over a little bit. Right here, another baseball field. And then you got, literally not too far, this is the big Sandy River we're going to be talking about here in a little bit, because I'm going to get into deep conversation pieces on this Ashland, Boyd County narrative. And all the resources that's underneath this land, still vibrant today, all kinds of things going on here. Not just, we're going to talk about the giant narrative, but I have to talk about it all because it fits the whole context of the video, the broadcast here. So anyways, let's get back to this. So they put a fence around it, and it just baffles the mind that this one, I have documentation now to show what was happening, how they excavated it. And they done all this, and I'll show you in a minute, they done all these things back in 1910. There was survey work back in 1910 that was documented. It started in the late 1800s, completion by 1910, okay? So we're going to get into some, I'm going to have to show you all some more imagery here. Give me one second. So the imagery that I'm getting ready to show you all is pretty baffling, really. So just where I showed you all this Google Earth imagery, you get this lovely Commonwealth of Kentucky plaque here. There's all these. All these are all over Kentucky. There's tons of them. If anybody wants to go out there and research them, look at them. If you see them on the side of the interstate, see them on the side of the road, whatever you see them on, I would suggest everybody stop and take a gander. There you go, a little Kentucky flavor. Take a gander, look at it, evaluate it, really read what they're throwing out here. So obviously the title of this this lovely marker here, Indian Mounds, right? So 1.5 miles northeast in Central Park is a regular row of mounds. Part of the chain built by prehistoric men who were the forerunners of American Indians. So let that settle in, folks. Oh, by the way, just everybody give me some feedback if the audio and everything is clear. I just want to, if y'all don't care to chime in and let me know in the chat, I'd really appreciate it. But anyways, so part of the mound, part of the chain built by prehistoric men who were the forerunners of American Indians. I'm going to stop right there for a moment. This alone, when I found out, whenever the scales started coming off my eyes, I started looking, and this was 10 years ago, or maybe about 8. Prehistoric men. When I started finding that prehistoric man was, you know, it gets into the, you know, you talk about indigenous, you talk about cavemen, cave dwellers, etc. But when I found out that it's referring to prehistoric man in the terminology that it was a gigantic stature, okay? it took me a while to really dissect all that and really get through all the programming and actually come to the conclusion. This is what we're dealing with here with this stuff. Okay? So, there are the forerunners of American Indians. Many of the remains of that ancient people, which once dotted this area, were leveled as the town expanded. Some of these were burial mounds. Others contain artifacts such as arrowheads and stone utensils. It's a traditional thing. Arrowheads around here, it's what you'll hear on any of these plaques. They're not going to get into like specifics of anything. They're not going to get into really detailed complexity of these things. They're just going to say, oh, it was just arrowheads, and then just throw it up and categorize it. Even if it had a variety of other things, they're going to just say stone utensils. I can promise you that because I have some documentation I'm going to be reading tonight. So this one alone, just in general, this picture alone, this is literally in that park. And we're going to show some more pictures here. I want to make sure that everybody has the concordance here. It's up on the right hand, north right of the screen here. If you all ever want to go check this area out, there's the concordance. I'll take a few moments for y'all to, evaluate, but this is where we was at a minute ago. I wanted to make sure I document that so I could have the concordance for you guys. So if you continue on, let me get a clearer picture here. This lovely document here, okay? What's astonishing about this is an old map of Boyd County. So when you look at it, it says legend up here at the top. Okay, zoom in. It says Ashland Mounds. Village site. And then 3 and 5 is mounds, okay? When you look at it and you evaluate what you're looking at here, they're at the northern part. And then here you go, this is Ohio, and then you got West Virginia. But this river here, you got the Ohio River, and you got the Sandy. We're going to talk about Sandy River here in a minute. I showed you a little bit of brief imagery of that when we was talking about Google Earth at the top there. I want to focus in on this mound right here. I want to focus in on that mound. I got it circled here. That's where that's where I want to navigate to. I'm gonna be talking about that more here in a little bit during the broadcast. I showed you guys the Indian Mound plaque. I showed you the overview on Google Earth. This is the fence line that was making the figure 8 that I was referring to at the beginning of the broadcast. There's significance here, folks. They left the mounds up because I'm going to get to why they left them up. This was such a vibrant place, and still to this day, with an enormous amount of materials and stuff that's under the ground to this very day in 2023. Here's another screenshot. I'll move to over here. No, anyways, so as you can see 2 mounds here, right? And it's the figure 8. I just thought it was baffling. We're going to read some more stuff, more data about it. But literally out this way, you got the basketball courts, etc. People go play and people go gather and all that stuff. So, and then I just had another screenshot of just to make sure everybody get a feel for where I'm at in Ashland, Kentucky here. If you find the Central Park, you'll find the area. So here's the Ohio River, right? So, and there's another imagery of it. So hold that thought, folks. I'm going to go back to the first page, and I'm going to read you all something about this location. This is baffling, really. Oh, and I'll show you something else in a minute, too. Hold me to that if I forget. So I'm going to read a little bit about Boyd County, okay? So this location is extreme northeastern corner of Kentucky. It's adjacent to the states of Ohio and West Virginia, as I just shown. It is bounded on the north and east side by the Ohio and the Big Sandy rivers, and represents the eastern edge of eastern coal fields. Okay, the coal fields. So we'll get into that. Like I was talking about, they have abundance of stuff, abundance of materials. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. The county has an area of 159 square miles and elevations which range from a little over 500 feet sea level along the Ohio River to over 1,000 feet on the ridges near Lawrence County line. Getting ready to throw some big words out here, folks. I think it's called physiographically, the county is hilly throughout. The only level lands being those in the floodplains of the river. Drainage is affordable. That's what it says. This is an old document here. Literally 1910. By a number of small creeks running into the Ohio and big sandy rivers on the north and the east, and by the Little Sandy River. And it's enormous. Local. Let me 1 moment. I lost my place. That's okay. Tributaries in the western part of the county. Much of the terrain is deeper, distinctive, and of a great scenic beauty. Geologically, the outcrops are limited to Pennsylvanian sandstones, shales, coals, and enormous deposits of Pleistocene, and on the bottom of the lands of Ohio and Big Sandy. The minerals resources of the county include coal, which is produced in large quantities, gas, which we're going to get into that in a minute. Gas is considerable abundance, okay, and a limited amount of oil. Good sand suitable for molding occurs on the high trellis along the Ohio River, and excellent clays are found in the number of the locals, while gravels are obtainable from the river bottoms. Okay, here's where it gets really good. Archaeology, Boyd County seems to represent an outline of an Fort Ancient culture, which has its center a little farther north and west, like I mentioned earlier with that mound that I showed you guys that I circled in the broadcast. As might be expected, the important sites along the Ohio River as might be expected. Also, most of these sites have been obliterated, like I showed you in this sign here that's presented on the screen. Obliterated for establishment of cities in this area. It is very likely that both Ashland, and we'll mention a name here, Catlettsburg, situated as they are favorable locations near the junctions of two great rivers. Here's where it gets really interesting. And this is, before you see this lovely Commonwealth of Kentucky, this didn't exist when this was written here. So just continue on here. I'll let y'all think about this. It's pretty interesting. Represent the location of prehistoric sites of considerable size and importance. I like how it says prehistoric sites of a considerable size of importance. However, even with the development of the great industry center, which now dominates the region, there still remains much evidence of prehistoric occupation. So I mentioned the term Catlettsburg. It's literally the biggest oil refinery in the state of Kentucky. Okay, folks, the biggest oil refinery in the state of Kentucky. Okay, it's literally called the Catlettsburg Refinery. It's American Oil Refinery. Okay, it's northwestern Kentucky, which we're at the location. And it literally supplies, it's in near the cities of Ashland, Kentucky, which we're in, and Huntington, West Virginia. It was built, the facility was starting getting built in 1916, okay, by the Great Eastern Refining Company, and purchased in 1924 by the Ashland Refinery Company. So now the refinery now occupies 650 acres plus site. Okay. So the interesting part is it says commissioned. It says it's in operation. And the owners of it as of now, it's Marathon Petroleum Corporation. Okay. And it actually does fuel a lot of employees up there for just occupation, to put food on the table. So I get it. So there's abundance of oil, a little bit of oil, but abundance of gas here, right? And they knew this, even when this document had prehistoric inhabitants of this location. They had to be diligent and work around and make sure that nothing, they was trying to, I guess, respect the dead in some shape or form. And I'm not, I don't know. I wasn't there. Thank you, Jason. So in commission in 1922 and all that. So due to the coal mining industry and the large quantity of petroleum products shipped from the refinery, and this goes from the Huntington, tri-state area, all this stuff they ship a lot out of there. As of 2007, they shipped 76.5 million tons shipped from this refinery. Okay, so this thing runs a lot of things here in Kentucky as far as petroleum and everything. In West Virginia, this thing probably does a lot for the the eastern part of Kentucky. So it baffles the mind, especially when we have this prehistoric inhabitants, right? So let's get into it. So as the sites with this fortification, this ancient fort, so the ancient forts would, let me see if I can show you guys. I'm going to zoom in. I think there was some type of ancient village. Village 2 would be right here. Yeah, Village 2's right here. And then 3 and 4 is the ones we was looking at on the site with the basketball court and everything, the baseball field and that stadium seating and everything for recreational purposes and just have parks and stuff. But they literally built a park around this area. So this is a 5 number mound, and then I'm looking at this Ashland mound, right? And then this number 2, we're going to be talking about that here. So the lower sites are probably representing either a fort, an ancient fort, the influence or typically of this county. This is where it gets really fun, folks. The city of Ashland seems to be located on an ancient village site, as evidenced by the large number of graves and mounds which have been found within the limits. 16 such sites were located in the city, and these are discussed in a separate section of this report following the discussion, and I'll get to that here in a minute, of the county as a whole. So there was these weird looking shape objects, right? The sign I showed earlier, they was talking about utensils and stones, arrowheads, etc. But there was these whistles, there's like these pipes, like pipe smoking, but some of them was like, they said they made sounds, but it's not even nothing to do with smoking tobacco. The property of the Americans rolling mills. This is back as a 1910 documentation here. Just northwest of the city limits of Ashland, undoubtedly represents the site of an ancient village, or an extension of the site. Represented by the city proper, and in the construction of the buildings on this site, large numbers of mounds were obliterated, and many graves were discovered. A large number of interesting artifacts. Many of them are now in the possession of residents of Ashland. Hit in the comment box, folks, if y'all are from Ashland, if you can tell me 100% truth, 100% that's legit. Especially, that was in the early 1900s. Who knows who's got this stuff now? But I'm curious if anybody's out there in Ashland that has been spoke of these things, if they understand it, if there's any evidence of that it is in the civilians' hands. Were found on this site. A mound on the farm William Eswick, 7 miles west of Ashland, was an elevation above a valley of Hood Creek. This is a beautiful mound. Like I mentioned a minute ago, it's number 1, I believe. This is a beautiful mound and 115 feet long. Just think about that, folks. It's pretty massive. 30 feet wide and 10 feet high. When visited by authors in 1931, because this is continuing on, this is a collaboration now it's kind of offset to another document. This mound had been dug into several places. And here's where it is, folks. 3 skeletons. 3 skeletons. And it was so baffling about it. It does not disclose that in this document here. But I am going to show you all another document. I'm going to read off another document here. These are just archaeology papers that I've dug up and found. I don't have a book. They're just archaeology documents. They don't have a number or anything. It's just literally telling you what they based it, what they've typed up and written. 3 skeletons and a number of artifacts have been removed. The excavations had left pits with containing considerable water, which would doubtless, that's what it says, doubtless affect burials in this immediate vacancy of digging, but a large portion of the mound still remain in good condition. A smaller mound about 150 yards south of number 3 into the south bank of Little Gardner Creek. The mound is about 10 feet in diameter and 3 feet high. It has been regularly cultivated and much material plowed from the surface, but has never been excavated. I bet you it's been excavated now. A mound near Summit Consolidated School, 4 miles west of Ashland. There it is. That's it. I skipped a page. Ashland, half mile highway number 60. Students from the school digging superficially in the mound found the portions of 4 skeletons and fragments of artifacts. So now we're up to 7. Okay. So here's where it gets interesting, folks. We know of no city in the state of Kentucky which contains, within the city limits, so much evidence of prehistoric occupation as the city of Ashland. Well, folks, this was done in 1910 in a collaboration to 1930. I can assure you now, my hometown, we got abundance. We ate up with it down here. I'm not going to even go there. But anyways, as far as Ashland, at this time, they have a huge presence of prehistoric occupation. Apparently, the whole entire area was time-dotted with mounds, graves, and the indication of extensive occupancy. There's an extensive, so I mentioned earlier with this, when I was looking at this. So there's prehistoric inhabitants, right? The forerunners of the American Indians, the prehistoric man that once roamed this land as far as Ashland, Kentucky. So it goes on. Many of these sites have, of course, been destroyed by the construction of the streets and the erection of the buildings. But on the other hand, many are still preserved in excellent condition, as you could see a while ago. And this, when I'm showing you the screenshots of the park, on the account of the large number of these sites within the city limits, a separate map is here included of the city of Ashland. And following this, So, kind of give you all overview. It goes on, just talks about archaeology material, the context of the whole scenario. It tells you the diameter, the size of these mounds, and gets into just the statistics and stuff, and just the circumference of these so-called large mounds. And I want to mention something else real quick. Let's see here. Yeah, one of them, here's the one I want to say, though. One of them was destroyed. It was large. It was a larger one, which I think it's the number 1 that I was showing you guys earlier. I'm pretty sure that one no longer exist anymore. But, yeah, and number 5, more than likely, as far as I'm reading. But I want to share this. So you have abundance of petroleum, right? So there's always abundance. So what was the Indian people going against with the adversary that they was trying to get into? What was going on with this, folks? Like, what was the deal? I mean, I'm thinking outside the box. I'm thinking more, especially with the news. If anybody's kept up with the Peru narrative and everything that's going on right now in the mainstream, mainstream media is not really covering anything. But I'm not going to really go down that rabbit hole. But there's all these different things, right, going on. And there's always abundance of material. You have these ores, you have mercury, you have petroleum, you have gas, you have, lithium battery narrative with rock asphalt over there in Harlan County, Kentucky. But hello, what do I know? I'm just being silly. But there's abundance, and you have these strange creatures, these strange tall entities, right? There's supposedly 7 or 8 foot tall beings showing up in Peru as we speak. In the last few days or whatever is going on. They're terrorizing the communities and all that stuff going on. But I'm not going to get into that much. So I want to talk about this real quick, just to touch base back here before we move on to another county. In Ashland, Kentucky, where we was at a minute ago. So Ashland, Kentucky. So the location here, I'm going to read some more document just one more time before we go on to the next county. So it refers to it in 1922 whenever this was documented here, this document. So you just remember, folks, I mentioned earlier about the Catlettsburg refinery that was in commission that started running in 1922, but there's data here that they still was working with these occupants of trying to excavate these mounds as of 1922. I don't think it's a coincidence, folks. So the Indians, let's just think about it. The Indians, the Shawnee, they knew where the water source was, the Big Sandy River. They knew where the Big Sandy River was. Let's go there real quick. Let's go there. They know where the Big Sandy River is. You got the Ohio River here. You got this whole other river here. You know, I mentioned the Big Sandy River. And they're building all these mounds and fortifications here, right? And then you're not too far from this area. You got this whole area is Ashland. So you have this Catlettsburg refinery with abundance of oil. I'm just not buying it, folks. Like, there's just so many things that has went on in our history, and I think the giant narrative needs to be spoken about. That's why I'm doing this evidence in Giants That Roam the Earth series. So I hope y'all are enjoying this. I'm doing a lot of talking, but I want to doing a lot of reading here. But I want to talk about this, and then I'll give you all my take on this particular site, and then we'll move on to the next location. So it says in these mounds it was covered up with large trees, right? And it said that first seen. So it was first seen, their particular class of people, of men. There's a certain type of men that came and deemed it, because they seen their own eyes. They come over to, I'm not going to say who they was. They come over, because I just don't want to get hit with something on the channel here. But they come across the seven seas of wonders up on their high pedestal and their lovely thrones out east, and they show up and they deem it that it's never been touched or, never been seen with the eyes of man, whatever. and so here's where we can conclude that there's giant reference here. One of the mounds to get a public road for to make it accessible for people to go back and forth to the town, they cut through a mound. They removed a skeleton of a man of a larger size was found. And what was so interesting about it? It was enclosed in a sort of rude box made by placing flat, thin river stones over it. And folks, there you go. We got our larger size. We got our prehistoric man narrative that is all over the place over there. But we have gigantic stature people that once roamed the earth that was in mounds. And the Indians had literally, the Indians was not there. These entities, these beings, they was inhabiting this area way before the American Indians, which it concludes that area. But I'm just want to bring this back up for everybody to understand where I'm going at here. This is, when you're seeing this, and it's telling you this. When you see prehistoric men, if you ever look at anything like that, I don't care where you're at. I don't care if you're in Oklahoma, California. I don't care if you're in North Dakota, and it says prehistoric man once roamed this earth, once roamed this piece of land. If it's the 200 acre, if it's a 1 plot acre land piece, and they have a little plaque and memorial to the prehistoric man, and it precedes the American Indians of the Hopis out there, or the if it gets into the Anasazi narrative, whatever it is. Prehistoric man is deemed across the board. It's anywhere you look at. I've done a lot of research and trying to dig, and everybody from the colleges and stuff local, they're saying, yeah, that's prehistoric, like indigenous men. It's gigantic stature. I just literally, and I'm reading the documents about this tale. It's not folklore. It's not little fairy tales. It's not little story making here. I really just want to expose that there's Indian mounds with giant people in them, partially fully excavated. Some of them, when I was reading the part of Boyd County here, they are still not fully excavated. So one would wonder what's going on here and who's covering this stuff up. We know that there's a lot of things that just don't fit the narrative here. So that concludes the Boyd County, but wait, there's more. I'm gonna go to another location because I could do a bluegrass. So we're doing this evidence of giants that roam the earth series, right? I hope y'all are enjoying it. if I was to take Kentucky, if I just was to take Bluegrass State, we could spend 5 years, probably more, every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We sit here, and I could literally talk about this just in the Bluegrass State alone. So what does that tell you? I've looked at 79 counties. 79 counties with the evidence I just showed you all right now. Not literally almost 80 counties, and we have like over 100 plus county, 120 county. We have a pretty abundance of counties here in Kentucky, right? Over 80 plus, or excuse me, almost 80 counties with the same narrative what I'm reading off and presenting for you guys today. And you got to watch these plaques. These plaques will tell you something, right? They'll tell you about this historical land or the bloody fields of this war or any kind of indication. There'll be an inkling of like there's this large war or something. This predates Civil War. This predates everything. They'll be talking about something happened here. It's very significant. But they don't dig. But the most compelling part of it is, and I'm daunted by it. Like, you can go find the research now. It's literally legitimately been covered up for, I mean, my goodness, for hundreds of years. But now we got, just want to throw us back in here, not to switch gears, but now we got Peru. We got 7-8 footers. We got 8 to 10 footers in Las Vegas. And they're not describing them as, human-like gigantic stature, or, to that point, but they are describing some type of elongated looking bluish, grayish, greenish character. And one would wonder what's really going on. But anyways, we'll continue on because I want to keep it on the same. I want to keep it on topic here, not going a big tangent with that. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoying it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Chuck P, thank you for subscribing. Bless you, and welcome to the Visual Disturbance family. Let me get my bearings here. A little slow today, folks. A little slow today, but that's okay. A little slow today, but just be patient with me. All right, so I hope y'all are enjoying the live stream. And let's see. Now, here we go. We're going to go to another location. This is one of my favorites. And you just can't make this stuff up, like I say on the channel all the time. Let's go to a place, and let's see here. It's another county in Kentucky. Let me see. I can't get my documents. I'm turning into David Carrico. Got so many different papers and stuff on the table here. All right, so here we go. So this location, we're going to Google Earth it again. This next location, I forgot to show you guys one more thing. Right before we get off this narrative of Ashland, I always do this. I always go to these locations to check out the ley lines. If you're new to the channel, if you're new to this topic, I always say ley lines, right? It's a sacred line. It's a energy line that connects megalithic structures, effigy mounds, these ancient antediluvian places, which we are talking about here. And so I'm going to show the ley line here. There's a ley line not too far. I thought it was very cool and very interesting. So you can see a ley line here, and there's a ley line in the opposite direction. I know that's a little bit further northwest, but let's just check this out, guys. So I always like to show this because I've looked at it, and I've looked at the ley line narrative. 60 plus, and I've seen, when I'll get to what I'm explaining here, but sometimes I've seen 40 to 60. That's what I've heard. And then sometimes I've heard like 60 to 80 miles out that the ley line will be effective. Like it will still somehow have this pulse of energy or whatever it is. I don't really get much